Hello gamers, it's Nyce, and I hope all of you glorious veterans are having a nice day. Today we have an interview with creative director of MMO Ashes of Creation, Sharif, and we will be discussing some recent drama and debate around the community involving suspected exploiters of this Alpha 2 test. In today's video, I'll catch you up on everything that has went down, then we'll get to the interview with Sharif, and then close out with an interview with T. Mugsy, the leader of the Polar Guild, the guild whom apparently was found to be accused and punished the most for exploiting. We also have some secret info from a guild who once allied with Polar until they were made aware of the exploiting occurring. And we even got an update on the timeline with the rogue archetype and when guild functions will come online. Now, this will be a long one, so sit back and get comfortable as we do a deep dive on all of this. Before we get into everything, I would just like to say I have no horse in this race and always try to be as balanced as I possibly can. Anything said or shown in this video is not meant to disparage, insult, or attack the Polar Guild or literally anyone suspected of exploiting in Ashes of Creation for that matter. I spoke with T. Mugsy and made him aware of everything that will be shown and did so to do our due diligence. Please remember to subscribe and like the video so that others can find it. Thank you to everyone who subbed on Twitch, became a YouTube channel member, and just show up for the streams. Truly appreciate it. And of course, a big thank you to Steven for taking time out to provide his take and be very responsive on this matter with the community. You will find timestamps in the description that I hope are convenient with this being such a long video. Now let's get into the drama. Ashes of Creation is currently early in its alpha stages, hosting a true work-in-progress alpha test environment for its eager gamers. It is not intended to be a game or even be perceived as early access. I've spoken about this in previous videos, but to reiterate, this MMORPG recently entered the Phase 2 of its Alpha 2 testing on December 20th, 2024. This quote launch of Phase 2 near Christmas break would come with some strife from the community. For you see, Ashes of Creation being a social, true, open-world PvX MMORPG has a system in place called Guild Wars. Now, Guild Wars allow you to declare war on another guild which flags you for PvP against that guild. This circumvents the corruption/normal PK system interactions. This is intended to be used for a variety of reasons, but typically to push another guild out of a grind spot, but more than likely, it's because there's a beef, a rivalry, drama, or something like that there, right? Well, pay attention because here's the kicker. Guild Wars reward the winner of the war. These rewards are dispersed to the entire winning guild and include things like the currency of gold and XP scrolls most notably. Gold gain is an obvious impactful reward as it directly affects the economy, which by the way is among the main focuses of the phase. And I don't need to speak on the value of XP scrolls in a game where leveling can be very challenging, contains XP debt, and is just time consuming to say the least. Well, within 2 to 3 days of the launch of Phase 2 servers, guilds were already spamming Guild Wars, already max level, and they were spamming these Guild Wars to circumvent the leveling and grinding process. To make matters worse, a lot of individuals of various guilds were found on video to be exploiting mobs in the leveling process. More on that later, as I'll be showing some of this footage and images which appears to allegedly show admission and acknowledgement of these exploits. But as far as the Guild War spam goes, some did it more than others, and the most notable or rather popular offender was in fact the Polar Guild of the Vira server. The Guild Wars did not have a cooldown, and as the guild leader will explain later in this video, they declared war on everyone and reaped the rewards, causing an abundant amount of complaints throughout the community, whether it be zone chat, Reddit, forums, various Discord servers, and more. I think I even saw a post about it on MySpace. Steven took to Discord to make the following announcement on Christmas Day, warning players not to abuse the system and warning that they will be taking action. Fast forward to late January and Steven made the following message detailing how many accounts were actioned against and what punishments were given. This put the community at ease, though it took quite a while to get this done. Most of the studio had been gone for the holidays, and upon their return, they had to go through each account extra carefully and inspect logs using their data tracking tools. Well, those actions finally took place yesterday, and the official Ashes of Creation Discord went on fire once the servers finally came back up for people to play. And some players noticed that their characters were deleted as a punishment. Everyone was in chat either celebrating or complaining. The Polar Guild Zerg chat as well to plead their defenses to the situation and express their dissatisfaction with Intrepid's decisions. There was a lot of debate on if it was justified, or some people actually felt like the actions taken weren't enough. They wanted to see permanent bans. Some people felt like no action should have been taken. It was debates on all sides. Some members of the Polar Guild were stating that they were never even warned about Guild War spam and not being allowed, and feel an Intrepid developer even gave them the green light to do so. I personally didn't interpret this message that way, but I guess different people can, obviously see it differently. Believe it or not, that's the short version of things. With that being said, we'll get right into the interview with creative director Steven Sharif. Do keep in mind this was very impromptu, and upon messaging Steven, we were on a video call literally 5 minutes later, so no prep. And, today's interview will, of course, just revolve around the recent news/drama. Afterwards, we will have more to follow, so stay tuned. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, Steven, first, I just want to thank you for doing this for me, for the community, especially on short notice.
Well, you know what I liked? Nyce about the interaction we had today is that you had a question. You shot me over the question, and I answered it relatively with some quickness and some clarity.
Yes.
And I think that's the type of relationship that should exist between the content creators who are invested, obviously, within the successful outcome of the game and the project, and the development team. Right? That's why this exists as an open development.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate that. There's not too often where you can kind of get like a straight line to the CEO. There's either PR, you either get PR speak or long delays or nothing at all. So I think I said this during our interview last year, but I'm not used to seeing a development team so interactive. That's not just you, that's like literally the whole team. So you guys are pretty approachable and transparent, which is I think one of the many reasons that's kept me around. So appreciate that. And yeah, you responded really quick today, even before the announcements were made. So I like that.
Yeah, and to be fair, like that's a top down directive when it comes to the studio, the project, the team as a whole. We're very encouraging of our developers to interact with the player base, with the testers, because in my opinion, it's that level of interaction that is obviously going to yield the best possible outcome when it comes to the successful completion of Ashes.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that actually it's something I'm going to be discussing in this video. But do you feel at some point that could become a bad thing for you guys? Do you feel like the community could ruin that? I was in, I'm sure obviously you saw Discord today, where some members of the community, like maybe you feel you're too approachable, or they start saying certain stuff to you. They're pinging you saying, "Hey, what the hell, Steven? This isn't fair, and fix your shit," and blah blah blah.
No, for sure. I mean, to answer the question outright, no, I don't think that that's going to stop the level of interaction. I do want to kind of champion as much as I can a little bit of a shift in the way that we, and I can say we because I'm a part of the players of MMOs of games, but that as we as players kind of look at development teams, look at developers, look at these companies, because there are real people behind the screen, right? And when you think about the types of actions that there was some drama about today with, us banning and deleting characters and whatnot, we are doing that, and it should be viewed as a very positive thing because it shows our commitment to ensuring that there is a level of integrity within the game environment that we're trying to create. And a lot of companies don't invest in that accountability loop for the players because of a few reasons. One, obviously, it takes time away from potential developers or community team members who have to investigate those actions. There's a level of investment required on the company's behalf. That's the first reason. Second is because it's abrasive, right? It is something that can be a friction point for the player. And you have a real opportunity to lose those individual players. So the company is, in a sense, disincentivized to take those types of actions against certain groups of players. But when my primary interest is ensuring the integrity of the play space, of the environment, of the testing environment that we have, um, ultimately, I believe that the long term outcome, the return on that investment, is a place that players can feel confident their efforts are going to be rewarded, and the people who do not put honest effort towards their progression will be actioned upon. So people, I think, even if you're a part of this group, it should be more of a reflection about like, how can I better participate or interface with this? Yes, I get it. It's a sweaty environment. It's a competitive environment. We're a PVX game that's going to, obviously attract certain types of player groups. But if there is confidence that it's going to be a level playing field and that those sweaty players can invest meaningful and honest contribution towards their progression, and the company is going to have their back in that regard, then ultimately I think the experience is going to be improved as a result.
Very well said. Very well said. And
And
so,
and just to double back, I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent as I often do sometimes, but to answer your question about how developers interface with the public, yes, we as players can do better to invite that conversation more. And we can do that by not creating alts now that are derogatory names against the developers, not using them as tools to further an agenda of pushing the boundaries and finding where those boundaries are. Not trying to get gotcha moments for non-community facing developers who are there to talk about systems and content, not about community enforcement actions, right? One important takeaway from this is that when it comes to community enforcement actions, anything that comes from me or anything that comes from the community team is official. If it comes from a developer that is working on the project, that is not a source of definitive statements on our community service actions.
especially if it's Planendorf, he doesn't matter at all.
Especially Planendorf. That's right.
All right. That's good to hear. So I want to move forward to today's bans as you were just speaking on. How do you expect players to find the line between what's a bug or just finding a bug, discovering a bug, or abusing it? I mean, it should be common sense, but there are certain things like with I guess the main thing of this ban wave, which was mostly from what the little bit I do know, was with the Guild War spam. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, the Guild War spam, you declare war on a guild, open world PvP anywhere, and you get rewards, XP scrolls, potions, everything like that. And a guild by the name of Polar, and I interviewed their GM, which we'll have in this video as well. Uh, he stated that, hey, they just didn't know better. Like they didn't know that, because I know you made an announcement where you
Sure.
said it's supposed to have a cooldown of 6 hours, if I remember correctly. And they said, hey, we didn't know we were supposed to be spamming these guild wars. It was never like mentioned anywhere. And just to give you a heads up before you respond, my rebuttal to him was like, I personally, and I'm trying to keep this as objective, like kind of, in the middle, keep
Sure.
my opinion
Yeah,
on
yeah,
this as
for sure.
best as
That's
I
fine.
can. But my response to him was, well, you should know, like, obviously that's not intended to a certain extent. Doing a couple of guild wars is fine, but after a while, 20 plus guild wars, or whatever the case may be, although someone told me, I think in his interview with Vladis, he said he only did 4. But regardless, he said how were they to know? So how do you communicate that
Sure.
to the player base?
So the first thing I would say is let's take this from a more generic perspective. How do I know what I'm doing in the game is an exploit or not, right? The first thing I want to say is that, we don't ban or delete tunes because they've engaged in an exploit or even because they've engaged in perhaps a few exploits. Um, as part of this stage of development in alpha testing, I set the thresholds relatively high when it comes to identifying individuals who I feel are disrupting the play environment through these exploitative acts. So nobody gets banned or deleted for a few instances of engaging with a bug or an exploit. That's to be expected. We want that. We want to have filed bug reports for those things. And we want players to kind of think creatively and outside of the box and how they can engage with systems so that they find those types of bugs.
Yeah.
What I will say is that when your engagement with a bug or an exploit or something that might seem off starts to touch your spidey senses of maybe this isn't the intended progression. And in this particular instance, when talking about the Guild Wars, there was plenty of global chat conversations, of forum posts, of Reddit posts complaining about these activities by certain groups. So there was a lot of opportunity to take a pause, to inspect and say, is this what's intended? Right now, of course, you can always engage with the moderation team, with the CS team, or even pinging me in Discord to ask certain questions, and we'll respond in a relatively timely manner. I think that over the course of the holiday break was when we were seeing this initial utilization of the Guild
Yeah.
War exploit, which is, of course, there's going to be some level of understanding when it comes to our time to response during that period of time. But we did give a response on that front. The other thing that I want to kind of comment on is that, look, I have joined a lot of guilds in the game. I eat, live, breathe, do everything possible, Ashes of Creation and the development of this game. And not only that, but I was the type of player who would exploit often. And I was the type of player who would cheat in games that were very competitive because other players did it and the companies did nothing to stop it. So
Mhm.
as a result, my competitive bone, of course, is going to say, I'm not going to let you do something that you're not going to get penalized for. And again, that's the type of atmosphere we want to perturb. So these tactics, the mule accounts, the backroom leadership channels, the discords that you're a part of, we see these things too because we give a shit and we're in the community and we're
Mhm.
involved with the community. So please understand this isn't some alien company that's detached from the player base.
Yeah.
We as developers are there with you and you don't know it in the vast majority of cases. Now, there have been some guilds that have found out who I was because they could hear me past the voice modulator that I have. And and on one occasion, I accidentally didn't have the AI voice mod changing my voice, and I thought I did, and they were like, "Wait a minute, Steven!" But I've been relatively successful, and I encourage my developers to do the same. Now they can, with much more ease, be a bit more
Yeah.
incognito amongst the guilds because there's not as much familiarity with the voice or the speech habit. Um, but you know, I
Are you,
think
by the
I
way, are
think
you mad that I kicked you out the guild?
that the people that did find out who I was, I did spend a little bit of time doing like a personal Q&A with their guild,
Mm.
just as kind of like a hey, a parting goodbye. Um, but I'm sorry. So let me get back on track. What was the original question? I'm sorry. What was the original question? I'll make sure I answered it.
No, I think you answered it. I think you answered it. And pretty much what I want to get through or make sure that you guys at Intrepid is doing is that you're setting a precedent. And I know
That's right.
that's something you spoke on like before Alpha 2's launch is that you've been in these environments, you've played these MMOs, you've been that guy, like you just said, that was the cheater, that was the
Correct.
that participated in RMT even. So it's really important to set a precedent.
Yes.
Um I received some messages today, which you kind of reassured me wasn't the case, that there might be some favoritism. How does your team? And I just want to give you a platform
Sure.
to
Sure. Sure.
kind of
Sure.
knock that out. When some players feel like, oh, you're being nice to this person because they bought this earlier pack, or because they were Kickstarter, because they were Phoenix Initiative, because they brought in a lot of Alpha 2 bundle packs purchased, and go through how you guys have a blanket approach, I guess, or what your approach is when it comes to these
Yeah.
situations?
So just to be really um, kind of specific on the pipeline of how we operate with enforcement actions, is we obviously have a communications platform called Slack that we use. And in Slack, there is a private channel that contains our CS team, as well as our database engineers and some of our designers who can inspect our metrics, analytics, and BI. And everything that's in the game, this was very important to me as part of, again, fostering that atmosphere of credibility and integrity for the player audience. Everything that's in the game, whether it be a single copper, any singular material or item, has a unique ID and is tracked from its creation off of the system, and any trade log that it goes through as well, right? So we have very, very granular inspection level events when it comes to anything that happens in the game. Now, as it relates to how enforcement actions occur, the teams are instructed as part of a regular basis to kind of go through and inspect those analytics and metrics that we have and identify fraudulently created gold through either a exploit that the CS team has been part of identifying, or through player reports that we receive as it relates to individual player behavior or any actions that might be existing within the community. There are thresholds that then get set, and anybody who, through the metrics report, falls within that level of a threshold
Yeah.
is actioned upon by the CS team. There are no individual nitpickers. There are no individual kind of removals of somebody that might be related to any purchase price or whatever. Like that's a bit of nonsense. Now, there might be instances where the logs don't clearly show what some trades might have been for.
Yeah.
This can be particularly difficult to identify as part of individuals who might have some social elasticity within the community.
Yeah.
They might be guild leaders, they might be co locating efforts or materials or whatnot. In that case, again, we inspect the generation of the material or asset. And sometimes there needs to be calls that get made about whether or not somebody falls within the line of plausible deniability or otherwise.
Mm.
That's natural. That's part of enforcement, whether it's us as a game company or any other game company. But there's no favoritism shown. There were a number of people that were impacted from the bannings and or character deletions who have been longtime members of the community for
Yeah.
multiple years. And I got message after message about how could you do this to me? I have been a part of this community for 7 years, this type of thing. And it's like, hey, look, I don't view this as a negative event. I view this as a positive event. There were very few bans of accounts,
Mm.
right? There were deletions of characters, there was removal of gold, there was removal of progress, there were warnings that were given. But the only people that I banned were people that were egregious. Either they had some type of racist behavior, or they had some type of just complete derogatory harassment, where it was very evident that this person was unabashed in their violation of the rules and of our terms of service. And in my opinion, those people don't need to be part of our community. So I'll just push them along. Now, uh, for the people that do come to me and they say, 7 years I've been part of this community, how could you do this to me?
Yeah.
It is a positive thing. You can go back, you can relevel your character, you can start participating and learn from this moment as an opportunity to say, hey, what I was doing was poor judgment, and I want the success of this game. And in order to be a part of creating a successful game and community as a player, I have certain responsibilities. Now, I could chagrin those responsibilities and not do them. And of course, in that respects, you're not going to be working towards a successful end of seeing this game come to fruition
Yeah.
that you love. And as a result, you're going to be punished because of that, because you want to have this awesome thing to participate in. But we have your back as a player, knowing that what you do achieve is not going to be undermined by people who are unwilling to give the proper effort to achieve the same thing. That is something that's important.
Well said. And to kind of go into just a little bit more detail with these tools and these methods that you use to track people?
Sure.
I noticed
And
on
I don't want to give too much info on the
oh
tools,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah. You don't want
because
to
obviously tools are not perfect things. They are literally that. They are tools that we can use. Sometimes you have to make new tools. Sometimes you have to adapt your existing tool sets.
yes.
Like that is just part of the, cat and mouse game that exists between people who look to undermine and people who look to enforce. That's
Yeah.
a natural relationship.
Yeah. It's a work in progress, as you like to say. But
Is still a work in progress. Work in progress UI and art is a work in progress. Work in progress look map, which is still a work in progress.
A work in progress.
Work in progress, continuing work in progress. The VFX are work in progress.
Very early work in progress pictures of the zone that will.
A lot of it's still a work in progress. Remember that this is a work in progress right now. Work in progress glory. This is still a work in progress.
Animations are obviously a work in progress, right?
Everything you see here is a work in progress. I are still a work in progress. This is a work in progress. Here is still a work in progress. This is a work in progress. Ashes is a work in progress. This stuff is all a work in progress still, right?
And this is a work in progress still. This is
I saw like on Reddit or in some Discord. Now, granted, some people like could just straight up exploit and they'd be like, "What? That wasn't me," or "That must have," like that. But how does your system handle, or rather, not really the system, how does your CS team handle, and are they willing to escalate and handle certain situations where someone's like, that may have been a false flag, like, hey, I'm just a
Sure.
really popular trader on the
A false
server, or
positive.
we were doing, false positive. Like,
Yeah,
are you
absolutely.
guys taking into individual circumstances and accounts like that and doing due
Yeah,
diligence for the players?
there is one thing also I want to comment on that, and false positives are a thing. They can absolutely occur. Again, tools are not perfect. And I will say that, again, part of the reason why we want to foster an environment where we don't have a lot of cheating or taking advantage of or exploiting is because false positives are the baggage that can sometimes come along with these types of actions by the company. And nobody wants to be that false positive. However, we do have a process in place by which, and we did communicate this, players who feel that they were actioned upon in a way that wasn't accurate can appeal the process to our CS team. We fielded, probably I would say about 40 to 50 different tickets today, where I prioritize the CS team to answer those tickets ahead of some more outstanding queues because they are account action tickets. And of course, we are a smaller team, right? We're not an Activision or a Riot
Yeah.
that has hundreds of CS. We have two CS who are working through our ticket log, right?
Oh boy,
And
yeah.
then we have, of course, some flex support that we can put onto that as well. But we answered them, and through the course of the 50 appeals today, we granted 3 of them.
Oh,
So there were 3 appeals that were granted, and again, it wasn't because the tools returned a false positive. It was because in some circumstances there could be some plausible deniability or explanations that might make sense, and then it
okay.
comes down to that individual's history as well, right?
Gotcha.
We want to take into account, well, how long have they been with the project? How participating are they within the community? Have they ever had infractions in the past? What's their history like? These are things that get taken into account when the decision could go either way, when they're kind of on the border of how a decision might go. And in those situations, during alpha at least, I'll err on the side of safety.
Okay. And here's I over the course of like my last couple of videos, I got whenever I'd bring up Intrepid's gonna be handling the exploiters, the bug abusers,
Sure.
whatever. I think I probably mentioned in probably 2 previous videos since the phase started. I get a very common comment in that this is an alpha. You want those people to find the bugs, which is true. We're literally testing. We've been told that a lot. You're not playing a game, you're testing. This is early.
Yeah.
It's early in the works. How do you what is your response to players that say, hey, you should, if anything, be encouraging those players? You shouldn't be banning those players. You should not be taking
Sure.
action against those players. You need those
Yeah.
players.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you look at it from a holistic perspective, right? There is a spectrum between what finding bugs looks like and what destabilizing the test environment, so you're ruining data that we collect on other systems, does, right? And so, saying that we shouldn't action upon these individuals when they've been instructed to use their better judgment and not participate in things that might destabilize the economy or that might destabilize specific features or systems. Like, you have to weigh those two things. We want people who will, in good conscience and with good judgment, participate in finding creative bugs and exploits and then report those to us, and not go through creating 600-700 gold worth of rewards as a result of repeatedly interacting with, a infinite chest interaction or a guild war excuse me, reward record issue. So there is a fine line between being an exploiter that reports it and doesn't take advantage of it, and being an exploiter who is doing it to get ahead of your fellow player at the expense of the test environment. And I think for most people, that's a pretty clear line.
Yes, agreed. Very good answer. Because, like, I mean, literally the phase 2 slide, like when it breaks it down, what you're testing for in phases 1, 2, and 3, phase 2 literally says economy. And in my opinion, the economy was, excuse my language, within the first 3 days. Because, like, how do you collect the proper data? Like, okay, it turns out, like, after a couple of weeks, this is going for this price, or players are utilizing the marketplace more. But, like, when things like dupes, which happened phase 1 and maybe a little bit this phase, when things like guild wars are introducing an influx of stuff into the economy that normally wouldn't have been there, that's probably fucking up the data, like you just confirmed for me.
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I will say, like, these types of interactions, the little bit of drama today, and the certain types of player groups that might find their way into the alpha and whatnot. This is why many game developments don't go down this path.
Yes.
And I want to say that, like, obviously there are a lot of, I think, companies and developers and publishers who watch what we're doing. I've heard them on their streams talk about how Ashes is, doing their transparent process and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I get hundreds of LinkedIn messages from, different people whenever I go to a GDC or DICE. That's coming up next month. People come and they talk to me and they ask for, advice on things and whatnot about how to engage with the community and whatnot. So I want to say that, like, if this type of engagement from a development team, from the company, is what you believe is most beneficial for creating the right, like, level of symbiosis between the player community and the developer of the product they're consuming. If that's a positive thing, you're working against that by interacting with the company in a bad way after these types of events, by even having these types of events, by the drama that might occur, like that, the level of witch hunting and toxicity that I might see in the Discord. We don't want that, and players don't want that. And so it's incumbent on then us to make sure that we're protecting those platforms for the people who do, in good intentions, want to participate in this development process the right way.
Very well said. If Ashes of Creation is a success, like you and I believe it will be, I think it will set a good precedent for not the MMORPG genre, but maybe the gaming industry as a whole. I
Absolutely.
think following this development, because I have never, and and this is nothing, no disrespect to you, but I will never
Sure.
again follow a project this far out. I've enjoyed this journey, but what it taught me is well, and I mean that in a positive, because watching this or following this development has made me happy. Like, it's made me happy. I don't want to follow another, like, you keep things on the radar, like, oh, this
Fulfilling, for
project's
sure.
coming. Yeah. But I don't want to, and excuse my poor metaphor here, but I don't want to buy my next vehicle without peeking under the hood first. I don't
Sure.
want to put my trust into the next vehicle. And so you guys being having this open development, I think is really good. And if you're successful and other companies follow suit, not just by doing a beta 2 months before the game is out, but really getting player feedback and input early on in the process, is really good, and it will be really good for the industry. So I think that was really good what you just said.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you know what? When I look at success metrics, right? I was just doing a review with Margaret last week. We did about, oh my gosh, I think we did 10 hour straight meeting days with leadership production, planning out obviously and confirming our roadmap for this year. Um, and, reflecting and kind of introspection on the studio last year and the development process. And during that, we were doing a review of marketing metrics and how much the community has grown, the number of new registrations and the number of people in the Discord and how many Reddit posts we're getting. And one thing stood out to me. We started Alpha 2 on October 25th, and that was the beginning of phase 1, which has now been departed by 90 days.
Yeah.
It's been 90 days as of 2 days from now. So
Mhm.
We were looking at Twitch stats, and I was looking. I was like, okay, well, let's take some comparisons here between where Ashes has been performing without any marketing dollar expenditures, with Twitch viewership, with number of hours viewed. And this is all publicly available information. But in the last 30 days, there's been 2.6 million hours viewed on Twitch of our alpha.
Wow.
And if you compare that to our current day kind of, what I would consider the competitive landscape, whether that be BDO or Elder Scrolls or, New World or Throne and Liberty recently, we outperformed all of them in our day 60 to 90 of
Yeah.
our alpha than they have in their launch currently. And that's not throwing any shade at them, at all whatsoever, right? They're great teams that made great games. But when you mention, like, if this is a success, I look at what we're doing now as very successful. I
Yes.
look at that from the perspective of the level of interest that we've gained. And even when I look at it from a critical standpoint, what are the types of criticism? What are the top 3 criticisms that we see from the more unengaged audiences, right? It's the price to enter, it's the time to develop, and
Yeah.
it's the content that's done, which all of those 3 things are, I want it,
Yeah.
but I want it cheaper, I want it faster, and I want more. Right. So it's
Yeah.
like, if I look at it from that perspective, I think we're doing a pretty damn good job.
And interest is just going to get better and better when that stuff starts trucking along and more stuff comes.
That's right.
And I'm sure you look at things this way from what you just said, but the way I look at it is I like playing, and I know it's a test. I should say testing, Steven, but I'm gonna say
Yes,
playing.
I know.
I'm gonna say
I
playing
know.
this time. I enjoy playing / testing this MMO more than most, more than any other MMO right now. Like I enjoy it. You see the potential there, and like you said, if the interest is right there right now, then Rogue comes online. There's another spike in
Let's do
interest.
it. I just got
Phase 3
confirmation
hits.
that our first PTR testing for Rogue is actually, I think, February like 4th or 5th. I can't remember. It's first week of February. We're doing some testing.
First week of
And by the
February.
way, I just got confirmation that we will be we're going to be bringing up our guild progression system that will have some very early guild leveling through guild specific commodity trading, that can then invest points into passive abilities like guild membership increase and specific combat buff bonuses. So that'll be landing on the 30th update.
Okay. Oh, you froze. Wait, what? Oh, there you go. You're back.
Did I lose you? There you go. Sorry.
So February.
Margaret's taken out the Wi-Fi. She heard I'm leaking too much.
Yeah. Like no more promises. No more promises.
Oh, that's coming. That's in a week. I can make that promise. That's easy.
Awesome.
It's when it's
So
more than 30 days out. It's a different
yeah,
story.
yeah. Okay, so Rogue early February, first week February, maybe between 4th and the 8th, and then guild
For
system
PTR.
improvements. Well, Rogue for PTR early February, and then guild basic guild improvements and skill trees and advancement. Okay, in February.
Yeah.
All right, lovely. Well, as much as I would love to get another full interview, I really appreciate you doing this for, not, like I said at the beginning, not just for me, but for the community to get some answers from today's drama, today's occurrences, or whatever you want to call it. You did this literally last second, message you, is like, jump on a call. And so, yeah. And we've been at it for half an hour. I don't want to take advantage or hold you up any longer. I'm going to stop the recording right there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And then, yeah, thank you so much, Stephen.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you to Stephen once again for the opportunity to clarify and discuss things for the community. Next, I want to share my short interview with T. Muggsy. Most of this background footage will be what leaders of the Verdant Guild / Alliance shared with me, so feel free to pause at any moment and read through. A couple of things to keep in mind once again, this is just me reporting on the situation, and there's always two sides to every story. And, there's a lot of guild politics and behind the scenes stuff that could be in play, ulterior motives. From what I was told by Sick Haze and Darkwind, whom are in charge of the Barcode Guild of Vyra, they noticed Polar and or Envious guilds whom they share an alliance with exploiting. They didn't like the fact that this was happening and thus trained mobs onto their own allies at the time. And things get juicier. Steven actually has a spy in this guild and may have seen a lot of this going down. Polar Guild members, as well as known leaders of the Envious Guild and longtime PI members, are allegedly in the upcoming background footage and apparently were full aware of the exploiting of mob AI to power level. This comes after they were found to be spreading a duping exploit in Phase 1 per a video from the Copian Clinic as well. By the way, great channel, quick plug, great guy. Make sure you guys sub to them for the best Ashes of Creation content in my opinion. I will have a link to their channel in the description. But anyways, back on schedule. Anyways, they were essentially making it so that they can't be hit unless players train mobs on them. It was literally the only way to get them out of this spot you see here. These videos and screenshots were sent to me, and I'm only providing them as they also, per the Barcode Guild, show the aforementioned Polar Guild discussing the exploit and discussing the guild wars. Per Barcode, once again, they stood up to Envious in the Polar Alliance, as they don't condone exploiting, nor do they want to see the economy ruined even in this alpha state. It should also be noted that Sick Haze did have a character deleted as well, and they attribute this to accepting fraudulent funds during a trade with Envious members. I cannot confirm any of this, and once again, I spoke to every party involved here. Although at the time of recording, I have not heard from Envious leadership, or rather they just haven't provided a statement. I have an interview with the Barcode Guild recorded audio-wise as well, but this video is long enough and I think I summed up everything they said here, as is. So I think that's, more than justified. I do feel it's important to get both sides. And I want to do this in one video this time around, unlike when I covered the Pirate Software and Federation Guild situation. So with nothing else to say, let's hear from T. Muggsy of the Polar Guild. A link to their recruitment Discord will be below. What is your overall thoughts about exploiting the guild wars? Did you know or feel you were taking advantage of the system? And yeah, I guess pretty much to kind of go where you want with it based from that.
Okay, for sure. I'll just give you like a timeline. It's like day 2-ish of the server. Most of the guild is level 20, 21, and probably some people 24, 23. People are starting to war on the server. People in my guild are asking me, hey, are we going to do wars, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't really feel like it. It seems like, we saw what happened in P1 with the war stuff. It was kind of fucked up and it wasn't really working. They're like, okay, no. They made it work. They fixed it. They did Passover of it. So now it gives like 5% of a level and like probably like 50 silver worth of flint. So it's like, okay, we'll do one. We'll test it, blah, blah, blah. We test it and it does literally that. You do a war, you win the war, you get like half a gold and, like 5% of a level. And you get a PvP. So that was kind of fun. So we did a couple wars, whatever. There's no CD on wars. And then with the gold you get from wars, you could collect the gold from your guild and just re-war again, right? Because the war costs about 5 gold. So the rewards go to the entire guild. So we're like, okay, cool. I mean, they did a Passover on this. They fixed this. This is the intended version of this. We're going to do this, and it'll be pretty fun. If we can level with this from 20 to 25, we will. So we're doing some of these wars. And, everyone's kind of like, nah, we should ask, though, because, we can kind of beat anyone on the server at this point, right? Because we're all higher level. So it's like, it feels a little bit like, like, let's look into this. So we reached out to community manager Nyce. I think we reached out to all of them, but I have a screenshot of our DMs with Nyce. We ended up reaching out to devs too. We got a response from a dev called Dread, who told us, if this is the state of the system, it's working as intended. As long as you guys aren't war trading or doing anything crazy, it's fine. And people are interpreting that in different ways. I mean, we spelled out exactly how we were going to do it. We said we want to level from 20 to 25, strictly war decking, and he said good to go as long as you guys aren't war trading or win trading or whatever you want to call it. So what we did is we went around, we warred pretty much every guild in the server. We never declared war on the same guild twice, just because we didn't want to seem like we were picking on anyone directly. And we never did a fake war ever. We only warred people. We tried to war the people we saw the most of. So if we saw a guild with 10, 15 people online, we warred them. And then, when you can't war the same guild twice, you just kind of war everyone, right? So we did that. We did that for about 24 hours. After that, a lot of people were upset, right? A lot of people got, killed or whatever. So, a lot of posting in Discord. Steven makes a post, I think Christmas night or something, saying, hey, these wars are supposed to have CDs. Stop exploiting them. Stop doing whatever, blah, blah. Okay, cool. There's no tooltip in the game that says wars have a CD. There's no patch note that says wars have a CD. There's still no CD on wars to this day. There's no CD on wars on PTR. They've never done anything to change wars. The only thing they did was remove rewards. When Steven made that post, we completely stopped warring. And that's kind of how it's been. It's been that way for over a month. And then all of a sudden, some people in the guild got their characters deleted over it. It's not a huge deal. We kind of expected this. A lot of people already re-leveled alts and whatever. So no one is it's not going to break pull or even really affect us at all. We're not really exploiting guild at all either. There's this, we did this whole war thing. So people are like, oh, Polar must be exploiting or blah, blah, blah. But you'll be hard pressed to see us exploiting anything really in the game. But that's kind of the whole story. I mean, I'm not afraid to talk about it or say what happened. That's literally what happened word for word. We war decked a whole bunch of people. We asked the dev. He said it was fine the way we were doing it. We spelled it out to him exactly how we were going to do it and everything. And now, Intrepid saying, it's potentially an exploit or whatever they're saying. I'm not even sure if they know what they're saying. But that's where we stand right now. How we feel about it. I can understand the frustration from Intrepid or other players, but we're just going to play to a game in the systems it has available. I understand it's an alpha, but if you don't want these systems played with, just say you don't want them played with. We're looking at announcements. Say, hey, cut it out, no more wars. Cool, we'll stop. Take away the rewards, we'll stop doing that too. We have no problem with that. We think it's pretty harsh to delete characters. There's a reason why other games will do 5-day, 10-day suspensions or whatever. It takes a lot of hours to level these characters. People put a ton of hours, and it's a month later as well too. So, not every single person, adjusted to an alt because they assumed that a dev tool was fine, so they didn't. But most players did. But the players that didn't, they're pretty upset. Not much more to say than that. There's a lot of people in the server that don't like us, so this is gonna, you're gonna get the people just hate us no matter what, and they're gonna say whatever. This is pretty logical. We got permission from a dev. We went through the proper channels to talk to people about it. I don't know what else we could have done to confirm if the system was intended or not. We went through every hoop that, as a player, you should have to go through. This is an in-game system. I think Intrepid should take a lot more responsibility for their in-game systems, but am I going to stop playing the game? Are we going to stop playing the game? No. We don't really care. It's an alpha. We'll just re-level and go again. For the people that don't have, alts and everything else already set up. It is what it is at that point.
In conclusion, that was the recent Ashes of Creation situation. I think this video is very unique in that we got to hear from a developer and Steven himself, but also hear from a member of the community no matter what you think of them, and just see both perspectives. I agree with what Steven said and definitely feel Intrepid is setting a good precedent and for the better. This may just be an alpha, but I think test integrity is important and the best thing for those currently testing and for the future of this highly anticipated MMORPG. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please like and comment your thoughts below so Intrepid can see. I ask that you keep it respectful as you debate each other in the comments. Show that we can be a wholesome community. Once again, thank you to all of our Twitch subs, Patreon members, and YouTube channel members for the extra support. Thank you so much for watching. It's been nice.